Welcome to Dimensional Shift, where we explore and actively deprogram ourselves, seek the truth of reality through expanding our perceptions, and focus on full remembrance of our true selves. As we begin to connect to our true selves, we will also see the truth of this illusory reality and the way it controls us through our manipulated perceptions. As soon as we fully remember our true selves, we will also see the enemy for what it is and how to rebalance the system by freeing ourselves and assisting others to do the same, creating a domino effect into the evolution of human consciousness. Welcome back to Dimensional Shift. It's been a very chaotic weekend as the partial solar eclipse approaches and the new moon in Scorpio approaches this week. I don't normally get too into astrology anymore, but it's interesting how the energies do sort of either affect or reflect the collective energies. Friday night, there was some weird upheaval in the collective energy. Almost like something really aggressive and uncomfortable was brought into the collective awareness or introduced. I'm still trying to understand how some of this parasitical stuff works, but something was introduced or made aware in the collective consciousness. It felt very aggressive, very angry. The collective consciousness had this weird, uncomfortable reaction. But it's been really interesting to me today, especially. I've been talking to several people on Reddit, and the theme that keeps coming up over and over and over is anger. And sometimes we're talking about it in the sense of shadow work. Some people are trying to actively release and heal it, and other people are looking to express it. And so I thought I would just take a minute, since I want to keep the podcast really relevant to what's going on with all of you. I wanted to talk about chronic emotional pain, a little bit about shadow work and what we can do about these chronic emotional states, how we can process and express these things in really safe ways that are incredibly healing. Chronic emotional pain would be something like core wounds in a certain sense. Chronic emotional pain can be related to a core wound, which would be an inherent sense of guilt or shame or unworthiness, something like that. But not all chronic emotional pain is core wound related. Some chronic emotional pain is from trauma. Some of it is from past life trauma. Chronic emotional pain is very similar to chronic physical pain, where we can't address it in the same way that we would an overwhelming feeling of, in the moment, unhappiness because our favorite chocolate bar is sold out or whatever it is. Any kind of pain is meant to be a message from your human complex to your mind that there's an issue. So acute pain would be something like you touch a flame and you learn that it's hot because it burns you. That pain helps you learn not to do it again. Chronic pain, although there is, of course, an emotional, energetic component to that, is something that has happened within your complex that you have not addressed. It's being stored there, and it's accumulating and collecting and worsening. And this is because you have not understood the message that it's trying to tell you. So if you put your hand to a flame and you didn't receive the message that it hurts and that your hand is burning, then you wouldn't remove your hand. So that message is going to keep amplifying until you understand it. The same is true with chronic emotional pain. Most of our human stories are very stuck in our emotional pain, even if we don't realize it. And this is often because, for the most part, we have not been taught how to process our emotions properly. And so we stifle the emotion, we don't express what needs to be expressed, we don't bring that message forward. And that is how we end up creating the Jungian shadow. Carl Jung was a psychologist back in the early 1900s who was extremely spiritual, very aware of how all of this works within the human complex. And he kind of put forth this idea, at least I'm fairly certain that it was him, it's normally attributed to him, of the shadow. The shadow is created when we repress and refuse to acknowledge certain aspects of ourself. So the shadow will take all of the parts of ourselves that we don't like and that we don't want to express, and it will cause them to spill out in really unfortunate ways. So for example, if you in your day-to-day life don't have the ability to speak up for yourself, to set and maintain boundaries, to ask for what you need, then those parts of yourself build up within you and spill out in really unfortunate ways. When you go out drinking with friends for an evening, then suddenly you become aggressive and you get into physical altercations. Or when you don't allow yourself enough time to rest, the resentment builds up within you, and the next day you start yelling at your kids for no apparent reason. These actions and reactions end up becoming cyclic. It creates the shadow that's going to express these things whether you want them to or not. So the important part when we begin processing these emotions and expressing these emotions, it's not that we need to rant and rave and sort of project all of our emotional baggage onto the world. Expression should only be used within the context of understanding what the emotion is trying to tell you. So if you're only expressing anger through whatever means, but you're not taking time to ask, why am I so angry? Or what can I do about this anger in a very practical way? Then you're going to have an unlimited source of anger within you, and you're going to keep creating situations in your life which keep you angry. The shadow wants to be understood. It wants nothing more than to be brought into the light and rejoined with consciousness. When we bring conscious awareness to the shadow, then we can reclaim those aspects of ourselves. We become more integrated and more balanced. So expression is important. Expression can help you process the emotion. But if you're only expressing, all you're doing is dumping energy, normally very toxic energy, into the world, into the reality, into collective consciousness. And often this is why we see suffering, creating and perpetuating suffering. So shadow work is primarily a process of self-inquiry. It is meant to integrate the repressed parts of yourself through asking yourself questions. Oftentimes, shadow work does a lot of journaling. There's a lot of meditation involved, but it's asking yourself those hard questions, and primarily the question, why? Why do I think this way? Why do I feel this? Why do I feel like this person's out to get me? Why? Once you understand the fundamentals, the machinations of whatever it is, the thought, the emotion, the pain, any of it, then you can begin to see the way to kind of do the opposite. So if you ask yourself, why am I screaming at my kids in this moment? And then you think, well, it's because I'm really, really tired. Then you could say, well, why am I so tired? Well, it's because I stayed up too late watching Netflix. Okay, well, why did I stay up so late watching Netflix? Because I never get any time to myself. See, now we're getting somewhere. Why do I feel like I never get any time to myself? Because I don't feel like I have support in our family to get adequate rest. Why do I feel like I'm not getting the support from my family, from my spouse or my significant other? Because I'm not asking for it. Now you have the possibility of a solution. This method of asking why until you get down to the core of the issue is really vital to this process. Sometimes we talk about it being why 5 layers deep. You have to get down to the actual core. Some people call it limiting beliefs or the programming, whatever it is, the lie that you're telling yourself, where you're enabling yourself to continue with this issue. So after you come to the realization, okay, well, here's the core of the issue. I'm not asking for what I need from my significant other. Then you can go into this period of integration. And this time is sort of a resting and testing time. You're both going to get some reprieve from whatever it is the issue was, sort of like this honeymoon phase where, okay, I know what the problem is. Let's see if I can solve it. And then there's the testing where you're going to be presented with basically the exact same situation to see what you've learned. If you have learned from the situation, if you have properly healed it, and you have put solutions in place and you've gotten rid of the core self-deception, then you will pass the test. So for example, if you were trying to understand and process why you were afraid to share your creative expression, your writing or your music or whatever it is, you get down to the core belief that, well, I feel like nothing I do is ever good enough, and you understand why you have believed that for so long. Then there's going to be sort of this honeymoon phase where, oh, I can write now, I can produce music because it feels so good, I've gotten rid of this belief. And then you are going to be asked, okay, are you really prepared to share your work with somebody else? If you're not, you may have to start over. Do not pass go, do not collect $200, do the process again. And I will tell you that shadow work is very much like an onion. You will have to do the same process over and over, often for the same issue, until you really get down to the issue. And even then, you will be presented with several opportunities to make sure that you have thoroughly healed it. But once you do, you have absolute freedom from that circumstance, from that type of suffering. So for chronic emotional pain, something like anger often covers up fear, but sort of the inner side of the onion. You have to deal with the anger before you can get to the fear. Anger is usually a sense of powerlessness. Your power has been taken away from you. You are trying to control a situation or circumstance or person or even yourself when you can't actually, or there's no way to actually control it. So you can express your anger. You can write angry music all day long. You can write angry poetry, even doing physical things like working out a lot, or they talk about punching a pillow or stomping around or screaming. You can go and sit in therapy 2 times a week and talk about all of your angry thoughts for years on end and never come to any understanding of why you're angry and what to do about it. Ask yourself why over and over and over. And then you will know if you have properly healed it when that situation again arises, and you will either pass with flying colors or you will go, ooh, still got a little bit of an issue here. And so you will have to go through the process again and again and again. Self-inquiry is absolutely vital to this path on so many different levels. Emotional being a really important one to understand because of the way it conjoins and intersects and affects our physical and energetic bodies as well. If you found this episode helpful or insightful, please share it with a friend and leave a review or comment. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I host twice weekly open discussions on the podcast topic on our Discord server. If you'd like to join, head to dimensionalshifter.com/Discord. If you're on Reddit, come join the subreddit r/Dimensional Shifters or send me a DM. My username is Dimensional Shifter. Keep deprogramming, keep connecting, keep listening to your intuition. This is it. This is what we've been searching for our whole lives. Connection to our true selves.